Hello and welcome to the inaugural edition of Insight, a new feature from the Greater Cleveland Partnership. Insight intends to break through the rhetoric and the confusion of issues facing Northeast Ohio businesses and offer concise, up-to-the-minute explanations. We hope you like this new format. I'm your host, Steve Luttner, and joining me today is Carol Caruso, Senior Vice President for Advocacy for the Greater Cleveland Partnership. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Steve.
Today we're going to explore Ohio Senate Bill 58. Now, this is an involved piece of legislation that relates to an involved industry, energy. Can you, Carol, boil this down and kind of offer an overview?
We'll try to do this in the brief time that we have, but I want to remind people that we also have information on our website, which we'll get back to. But basically, Senate Bill 58 is taking a look at legislation that was put into effect in 2008, legislation that made a lot of changes on how we deal with energy in the state of Ohio. It's a review of that legislation.
And what's driving this legislation? Why is it coming forward now?
Well, really, it's a different world. Back then, we had a heavy reliance on coal as our source of energy, and we thought both the use and the prices of coal were going to spike, and they did not. We also had a fairly young alternative and advanced energy industry that was just taking hold, and importantly, we had no idea what was ahead in terms of natural gas through the development of shale.
So the energy landscape in Ohio has changed significantly in just 5 years.
Absolutely.
Now, this legislation is broken into two distinct parts, really. Could you talk about those a little bit, please?
Yeah, I like to think of them in terms of supply and demand. On the supply side, we're dealing with alternative energy and advanced energy and how we use those in the state. Certain mandates are in place right now, and how do we get to those mandates? And on the demand side, it has to do with energy efficiency and how we reach certain standards on that side of the equation.
So, Carol, on the supply side, and correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, the existing legislation calls for, by the year 2025, for 25% of Ohio's energy to be produced by renewable or advanced energy.
Correct.
Is that right? And would that remain the same under this legislation?
It does remain the same. The standard remains the same, but this legislation makes it easier to get there.
And then on the efficiency part of this, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it currently calls for Ohio to reduce, the goal is to reduce its consumption by 22% by the year 2025.
Correct.
Is that right? Does that remain intact?
It does, and very similarly, we see changes being made in terms of how you reach that level of efficiency.
Something else that I found interesting in our previous discussions about this, there is an existing surcharge on ratepayers' bills to pay for energy efficiency programs in Ohio.
Correct.
Is that right?
Right.
And that generates a considerable amount of money?
Yeah, you might look at it as a sort of tax, and all of that together generates a lot of money. As of the end of 2012, it was $500 million.
Now, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is pending legislation. There is some opposition forming out there?
There is. There are folks that want to see this new industry of alternative and advanced energy have more of a chance to really take hold, and then the same thing with energy efficiency. Some of that's working extremely well, and those who think it requires a government incentive to do that want it to stay in place.
This legislation, where is it in the pipeline in Columbus at the State House? Where is it, and how do you see it moving forward?
Well, right now it is in the Senate, and we're participating in hearings in the Senate. There are those who hope to see this completed by the end of the year. It certainly has traction in Columbus, but whether or not there are enough legislative days to get that done is a question we don't know.
Do you think the legislation as it is now is in its final form, or do you suspect it will be amended?
Oh, it will be amended. I mean, there are amendments being discussed now, and the GCP will be looking at all of those.
Does the Greater Cleveland Partnership have a position on that? Has it taken a position on this piece of legislation yet?
Not yet. Our Government Affairs Council is reviewing it right now. We expect to come forward with a position within the next week or so.
So if folks want more information, where can they get it?
gcpartnership.com/SB58.
And Carol, there's one other note. I know, I just wanted to add this onto the show today. November 22nd, I understand there's a big event that GCP is hosting. Can you talk about that for a moment, please?
Right. Windows at the River, 5:30 to 8:30 on November 22nd, our 50th anniversary of our public officials reception.
Which will include, as I understand it, a unique and maybe historical gathering of past Ohio office holders.
Yes, we're honoring a number of former elected officials who, by their work in public service, have really made a difference to our city and our region.
Bipartisan gathering of office holders. Who cares if they're past office holders? It's going to be a civil event.
And bipartisan.
Okay, thanks, Carol, very much. And thank you for watching the inaugural edition of Insight. In the weeks and months to come, Insight will examine more issues that affect the Northeast Ohio business community. Thanks again.